Beloved soul, take a moment right now. Breathe gently and settle into this space, because what is being placed before your eyes in this moment was not brought to you by accident. Heaven itself has guided your steps to this message at this precise point in your journey. Something is shifting around you right now. It may seem quiet on the surface and almost invisible to your natural eyes, but the angels are declaring clearly that what is unfolding beneath the surface of your situation carries far greater power than anything you are currently able to see with your own understanding. If you want the full truth about what happens when you stop chasing, take a moment to acknowledge it within your heart. You did not fight or plead. You did not send one final message trying to explain yourself or justify where you stood. You simply stopped. You stopped chasing and stopped directing your energy towards someone who had become completely comfortable receiving it without returning it in equal measure. And beloved, in that single, quiet and courageous decision, something ancient and deeply sacred was set into motion that you may not yet fully understand. The person who once felt entirely certain of your presence is now standing inside an unfamiliar silence they were never prepared for. The warmth you extended so freely, the attention you gave so consistently day after day, and the emotional availability you offered without hesitation, all of it has been withdrawn. And they can feel that withdrawal not as conflict or confrontation or drama, but as absence. Absence, beloved, carries a kind of spiritual and emotional power that words could never fully replicate or create. Right now, whether you can clearly see it or not, they are thinking deeply. They are questioning and feeling things they never expected to feel, because for the very first time, they are encountering you without your effort holding everything together between you. And that changes everything about the dynamic that once existed. When you stop chasing someone, the shift that takes place is not loud or dramatic, but it is profoundly real on both a spiritual and psychological level. Before this moment, the connection between you was being sustained almost entirely by your effort, your messages, your emotional availability, and your consistent willingness to show up. All of that energy was flowing steadily toward them, creating a kind of one-sided momentum that kept everything moving forward. That momentum placed them in a position of emotional and spiritual comfort that they never had to examine or question. They did not have to make clear decisions about what they truly wanted. They did not have to examine their own feelings with genuine honesty or fully confront what they genuinely desired from the connection, because your energy was filling every gap and answering every question before it could fully form inside them. God designed the human heart to seek, to pursue, and to make meaningful choices. But when one person is doing all the seeking and all the pursuing on behalf of both, the other person is deprived of the very process that produces authentic and lasting commitment. They were existing within the connection without contributing equally. And a connection that only one person is truly sustaining is not covenant. It is convenience. The moment you stopped, that entire structure began to give way. Not because you created drama or forced any kind of confrontation, but because you withdrew the force that had been holding an imbalance in place that was never meant to be permanent. What once felt stable and certain to them now feels uncertain and unfamiliar. And the human spirit, just as God designed it, is fundamentally uncomfortable with uncertainty when something meaningful appears to be at genuine risk. Proverbs 4:23 tells us that above all else, we are to guard our hearts, because everything we do flows from that place within us. Beloved, when you stopped chasing, you began guarding your heart. And in doing so, heaven began doing what only heaven is capable of doing. It began revealing truth. The truth is that before your silence, their attention was entirely passive. They received your energy without ever feeling the need to give back, fully confident that your effort would always bridge the distance between you. Your predictability had become their comfort zone, a constant they never had to question. But now your absence has made their attention active. and for the very first time, they are noticing the void. This is not a coincidence, beloved. It is by divine design. The human mind naturally normalizes what is always available, but it is awakened the moment that presence is withdrawn. Your silence has interrupted their expectations, leaving a gap where quiet questions are beginning to form. They are revisiting past conversations and wondering whether something has changed, as God uses this disrupted certainty to awaken a spirit that complacency had put to sleep. 1 Corinthians 14:33 reminds us that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. The confusion they now feel was authored by the imbalance they allowed to exist. Because by chasing them, you carried a weight that was never yours to bear. Now your stillness has made that imbalance impossible to ignore. And the connection suddenly demands an investment and initiative from them that feels deeply uncomfortable. Your attention was a mirror, reflecting their significance, without them ever having to earn it. Now that the mirror is gone, they must face the reality of what they may have taken for granted. As Psalm 37:23 says, "The steps of a righteous person are ordered by the Lord." Your step towards stillness was ordered by God to finally reveal the truth. Heaven is using your decision to stop chasing to bring about powerful spiritual revelations, beginning with the exposure of the imbalance. When you were giving everything, the unequal nature of the connection was hidden beneath your effort. But now, the truth is laid bare. They are forced to see how little they contributed, how often you reached out, and how much emotional labor you carried alone. This produces a level of honesty that is necessary for genuine healing. Furthermore, this silence creates a stillness where emotions rise more clearly, forcing them to sit with their own thoughts and confront what they truly feel about you. Finally, this creates the ultimate test of initiative. The responsibility to move the connection forward now rests entirely on them. And their choice will reveal their true character, because someone who genuinely values you will not allow the silence to remain permanent. Another powerful revelation comes through the unveiling of emotional and spiritual maturity. Not everyone responds to absence in the same way, and the way a person responds to your silence reveals the true depth of their emotional and spiritual maturity in a way that very few things can. A person who is genuinely capable of real covenant love will not react defensively to your withdrawal. They will sit with the discomfort it creates. They will examine their own behavior with honesty rather than retreating into pride. They will ask difficult questions of themselves and resist the temptation to look away from the answers. They will recognize that growth often begins where comfort ends. They will understand that meaningful relationships require effort, accountability, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Rather than blaming circumstances, they will examine their own role in what has unfolded. They will become curious about the distance rather than indifferent to it. They will seek understanding rather than avoidance. And in that process, they may begin discovering things about themselves that they had ignored for a very long time. But a person who is not yet emotionally mature will resist this process entirely. They may pull further away in order to protect their sense of pride. They may convince themselves that the connection was never as significant as it felt when you were fully present. They may create explanations that allow them to avoid responsibility. They may distract themselves with temporary comforts, rather than sitting with the deeper questions that silence brings to the surface. They may wait passively for you to return to your old patterns, rather than rising to meet the moment with the courage it requires. They may continue expecting the same effort from you while offering little in return. And in doing so, they reveal not only their current level of emotional readiness, but also their willingness, or unwillingness, to grow. Their response, beloved, is one of the clearest signs heaven can send you about whether this person is truly prepared for the kind of love God is calling you toward in this season of your life. Because silence does not merely create distance, silence reveals. It reveals intentions that words once concealed. It reveals priorities that excuses once disguised. It reveals whether someone values your presence enough to pursue it when it is no longer being freely offered. And perhaps most importantly, it reveals whether they are willing to step forward when the responsibility is finally theirs to carry. The truth is that stopping your pursuit was never about punishment. It was never about manipulation. It was never about creating fear or forcing a reaction. It was about stepping out of a role that was never meant to belong entirely to you. It was about releasing a burden that had become too heavy to carry alone. It was about allowing truth to emerge without interference. And now, in the stillness that follows, everything is being brought into the light. What is genuine will become clearer. What is imbalanced will become impossible to ignore. What is mature will move toward resolution. And what is not yet ready will reveal itself through continued avoidance. That is why your silence carries such power. Not because silence itself changes people, but because silence removes the distractions that once prevented truth from being seen. And when truth is finally visible, choices must be made. Hearts must be examined. Intentions must be confronted, and character is ultimately revealed. So do not underestimate what has been set into motion by your decision to stop chasing. What feels quiet on the surface may be creating profound movement beneath it. What feels like an ending may actually be a revealing. And what feels like absence may be the very thing that finally exposes the reality of the connection for what it truly is. Whether that reality leads someone closer or farther away, it will bring clarity. And clarity, beloved, is one of heaven's greatest gifts. Because once truth is revealed, you no longer have to carry uncertainty in the same way. You no longer have to wonder what would happen if you stopped doing all the work. You no longer have to question whether someone values what they only received effortlessly. Now the responsibility rests where it always should have been. And what happens next will speak louder than anything words could ever say. The fifth way is through the revealing of their true feelings. Your consistent presence may have been sustaining emotions within them that were partially kept alive by your energy and your effort, rather than by any genuine and independent depth of feeling on their part. But your absence removes that external influence completely, and what remains in its place is the honest reality of what they truly feel about you, independent of anything you are doing or not doing. If their feelings for you are genuinely real, the absence of your presence will cause those feelings to grow stronger. They will begin to miss you not as a comforting habit or as a familiar convenience, but as a unique and irreplaceable person. They will recognize what your presence truly meant to their life in ways they never slowed down enough to fully appreciate before. Memories that once seemed ordinary may suddenly carry deeper meaning. Conversations they overlooked may begin replaying in their mind with a new sense of understanding. Moments they once took for granted may now stand out with surprising clarity. The distance creates space for perspective. And sometimes, perspective reveals value more clearly than proximity ever could. But if their feelings were shallow, if they were sustained more by the ease of your availability than by a genuine and meaningful connection, that truth also becomes visible through the silence. The absence of your energy removes every distraction and leaves only what is authentic. And either outcome, beloved, is a gift. Because truth, even when it is difficult to accept, is always better than a comforting illusion that keeps you standing in a place you were never meant to remain. The sixth way is through the activation of spiritual clarity within you. Beloved, this is something the angels want you to hold very closely within your spirit. The silence you have chosen is not only working on them, it is also working within you in ways that are equally significant. It is creating room for God to speak directly to your spirit, without the constant noise of emotional striving, uncertainty, and overthinking that has been filling that space for far too long. When you stop pouring all of your energy outward towards someone who is not meeting you where you are, that energy begins returning to you. And God uses that restored energy to heal what has been quietly depleted over time, to sharpen your discernment, and to prepare your heart for what is genuinely coming. The emotional resources that were once being spent trying to maintain the connection become available again for your own restoration. Your focus becomes clearer. Your thoughts become quieter. Your spirit becomes more receptive. And in that stillness, you begin hearing things that were previously drowned out by constant emotional effort. Isaiah 30:15 tells us that in returning and rest is our salvation, and in quietness and trust is our strength. Your silence is your strength, beloved. It always has been, even when it did not feel that way during the more difficult moments of waiting. Strength is not always found in movement. Sometimes it is found in restraint. Sometimes it is found in trusting God enough to stop forcing outcomes and allowing Him to reveal what is true. The seventh way is through the removal of what is not covenant. If this person is not truly meant for you, if this connection is not ordained by God as a genuine covenant between two lives, then your silence will make that truth undeniable. Not through argument or confrontation or pain, but through natural revelation. What is not meant to remain will quietly fall away beneath the honest weight of your withdrawal. Without your effort constantly sustaining what was unstable, the true condition of the connection becomes impossible to hide. What was dependent upon your constant pursuit will reveal itself. What was genuine will remain, and what was never meant to continue will slowly lose its hold. A door that closes, beloved, is never God's punishment for something you did or failed to do. It is often God's protection over what lies ahead for you. The ending of something that is not aligned is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of divine guidance. What leaves your life to create room for something greater is not loss. It is preparation for the real thing that is still approaching. It is the clearing of space for something healthier, stronger, and more aligned with the future God intends for you. When your energy shifts and the pursuit comes to an end, the person on the other side enters a season of emotional and spiritual unsettledness, even if they carefully maintain a composed exterior for the world around them. And the angels want you to understand what that unsettledness genuinely looks like, because recognizing it will protect you from misreading what is quietly unfolding in the space between you. The first reaction they experience is rarely clear or direct. Instead, it arrives as a mixture of confusion, growing curiosity, and a subtle anxiety that builds beneath the surface of their ordinary daily life. Confusion is usually where it begins. They had grown accustomed to a certain emotional and spiritual rhythm between you. A predictable flow where your energy was always present and consistently moving toward them. That rhythm created a sense of stability within them, even if they were never fully conscious of it or grateful for it. When that stability disappears, their spirit struggles to settle back into any comfortable place. They find themselves asking persistent questions that do not arrive at clear answers. Why did this shift happen? What caused this change? Is this about something they said or did? Has something changed within you? Has something changed within themselves? The questions continue, moving in circles without finding anything solid to rest upon. And that circular movement creates a discomfort that is genuinely difficult to dismiss or ignore. Their mind returns to the situation repeatedly. The silence keeps drawing their attention back toward what they have been avoiding. And the longer the questions remain unanswered, the more noticeable the absence becomes. What happens next after the silence has settled and the reflection has genuinely begun is not determined by circumstances alone. It is determined almost entirely by the inner condition of the person who is now facing those circumstances. Your absence creates a space. But what that space ultimately produces depends completely on the emotional and spiritual maturity of the person encountering it. A person with genuine emotional and spiritual maturity does not simply react impulsively to the discomfort your absence creates. They pause. They look inward rather than outward for answers. They become curious not just about you, but about themselves and their own behavior within this connection. When they feel the weight of the shift, they do not rush to assign blame or construct an explanation that merely protects their pride and leaves them blameless. Instead, they begin examining the role they played in how things unfolded. How much did they genuinely contribute? How honestly did they communicate what they felt and wanted? How clearly did they pursue what truly mattered to them when the opportunity was present? Did they recognize your value while they still had direct access to it? Did they appreciate what was being offered? Did they invest in the connection with the same sincerity they expected from you? These are not easy questions, but maturity is revealed through the willingness to ask them. This examination brings with it a quiet accountability they were not previously willing to carry. Instead of focusing only on what they may be losing, they begin to understand what they failed to offer when the opportunity to offer it was still clearly available. And from that honest place of self-awareness, their response tends to become more intentional and more authentic. If they value what existed between you, they will move toward it. Not impulsively, not merely to fill the silence, not simply because they dislike discomfort, but because they have come to recognize its true importance. After you have prayed and surrendered the outcome to God, the angels want to speak to something that many people carry quietly beneath the surface, but rarely find the words to express. After you stop chasing, after you create the silence, after you genuinely trust God with whatever the outcome may be, many people expect that everything will resolve itself quickly. They expect the answer to come immediately. They expect the shift to produce an obvious and visible result. They expect certainty to arrive without delay. But beloved, God works in seasons. Just as a seed placed carefully into the ground does not become a mature tree overnight, your covenant clarity is being grown with care, intention, and perfect divine timing that only heaven can fully see and orchestrate. Growth often happens beneath the surface, long before it becomes visible above it. Roots develop before branches appear. Foundations are established before structures rise, and spiritual preparation often takes place long before outward results can be seen. Do not mistake a quiet season for an empty one. God is working even when you cannot yet see evidence of that work within the circumstances around you. He is working within them, stirring and revealing and gently confronting what has been consistently avoided. He is working within you, healing and strengthening and preparing your spirit so that when what is coming finally arrives, you are not too depleted or too distracted to receive it fully and wholeheartedly. He is restoring areas of your life that may have quietly suffered while your attention remained fixed elsewhere. He is rebuilding confidence where uncertainty once lived. He is renewing hope where disappointment once lingered. He is teaching patience where urgency once dominated your thoughts. He is working in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding the entire situation. Removing what is not